Well, here's a list that's going to be debated, yelled about, criticized, hated for the rest of time. I imagine this video is going to have 20 likes, it's going to have 5,000 dislikes, and 10,000 comments, and all of the comments are going to be essentially face-painted dick-waving about how wrong I am. Well, just remember this. 2 inches is still 2 inches under a microscope. I'll let you guys wonder what that means. But this is black metal. Black metal is extremely expansive. It's a huge, huge subgenre of metal, and one that has now gotten its own offshoots and own subgenres, so it's a massive big deal. And of course, because of that, people may look at this list as a bit pedestrian or just scratching the surface. But this is a personal list, and I have listened to a lot of stuff, and these are the things that really jut out at me. Now, based around that, I want to see your personal lists. What are your top 10 favorite black metal albums? Please put them in the comments box below amid the other infighting that's going on, and let's have a little bit of fun with this. So, without further ado, here are my top 10 favorite black metal albums of all time. Number 10 is Wataine's Lawless Darkness, one that was just released within the past decade, and to me really exemplifies what happens whenever a band has a very raw sound that's associated with it, but gradually grows, evolves, and decides it wants to incorporate some other things and wants to try a couple of different things out. We saw that from Wataine during the latter portion of the 2000s and the first part of the 2010s, and it was an experiment that I think was a really big success, considering they crafted an album that was very addicting, difficult to put down, and definitely had evil on speed dial. I love this disc. I think it does a lot of things right, but we move on to number 9. Number 9 is Drudka with Blood in Our Wells. This one has some folk attached to it. This one has stories attached to it. This is a little bit different. It's almost as though we transitioned into a completely different type of black metal, which we kind of did. There's a little bit of nationalism in here, but not the nationalism you're thinking of. No, no, no. Don't use that word incorrectly. Instead, this is one that speaks about their homeland and does get into some of the legendary stories that are associated with it. Now, you take that and put some impressive riffing behind it and just long concepts that just tend to really suck you in and soak you in, almost reminding you of a black metal version of some of the more folky Moon Sorrow compositions or something of that variety, and you have a very addicting album that tends to feel like it is more massive than perhaps it actually is. It's an album that doesn't feel its runtime, it instead feels a lot less, which means that you're begging for more by the time it ends. Number 8 is Immortal with Sons of Northern Darkness. I like to tell this story. I like to tell the story about going to see Immortal on a night of a very bad snowstorm in this area of the country. And one of the coolest members, or the coolest memories, should I say, that I have of that experience is the playing of Tyrants from Sons of Northern Darkness during that show. And the fact that literally it felt like we were amid the tundra with the blizzard beasts themselves. However, Sons of Northern Darkness was at one point thought to be the very final album that we were going to get from Immortal, and it seemed like that was going to be the case for a long time. And they certainly went out on an extremely high note, as they were able to use a lot of the different tools and a lot of the different lessons they learned from their 1990s raw days in order to produce an album that was pretty well polished, but at the same time still felt larger than life and still feels very unique to this day. Number 7 is Leviathan with Scar Sighted. Speaking of unique beasts that are on this list, this one certainly is that. It's one that has avant-garde associated with it. It's one that really tries to necessitate just pure evil and melancholy, while at the same time sounding like one of the most destructive forces that has ever come out of the genre. Now, this is an album that was gushed on by a lot of people, and since then it started to receive some repressive treatment. However, I still find that Scar Sighted was able to do enough in order to be very unique and very strange and sort of rewrite the rulebook a bit, that it allowed other bands, or will allow other bands, to really renegotiate the rulebook or renegotiate the formula to what makes a great black metal album. This is going to be one that's going to be very influential throughout the future, and I loved it whenever I listened to it. Number 6 is Dark Fortress with Elam, and this is kind of a personal gush pick, and it's mostly because this was a blind purchase based off of the samples that you got whenever you went into old music stores. You know, there's things that are no longer around. Not music stores, there's a couple of those left, but there's little sample pods. You know, we have the internet now, so you can just listen to the whole stupid thing on YouTube before you decide to buy it, if you decide to do it at all. But based off of what I heard with tracks such as Evenfall, I knew I immediately wanted to purchase this album. And once I did, man, was it just a mammoth experience. Dark Fortress is a group that consistently has grown and evolved their sound. And up to this point, they had been seen as a band that had a terrific amount of potential. Although I feel that with Elam, they were able to supersede some of those potentials and be seen as a group that was for real. A group that had just really a blank canvas in front of them that they could take into any direction. And they definitely did that with their follow-up album, Venereal Dawn. So based off of that, this is a group that still has a tremendous amount of upside, but Elam is the album that just absolutely blew my mind and got me very deep into this band. Number 5 is a tie, but they are both from the same band. They're both from Mayhem. We have De Mysteriis Don Sathanas, and we have Esoteric Warfare. And you might say, man, that's a rather large gap. And the reason for that is because it's two different styles that really helped two different waves of black metal. Obviously, De Mysteriis Don Sathanas is seen as the all-time classic, the one that everybody cites as the ultimate black metal album. However, whenever it comes to Esoteric Warfare, it's almost like a war cry for the new school. Now, with De Mysteriis, we have a very satanic sound, a very raw sound, but with Esoteric Warfare, instead we have a sound that's geared toward making very dank, very just destructive sounding, eerie masterpieces, ones that really strengthened the already ridiculous vocals of Attila and just... it created dread. It was an album that created actual atmosphere and actual emotion. And based off of that, it showed that that was not off limits, and instead, you were able to do this as a black metal artist and really aim to create music that is just as desolate as the lives that you claim to lead. Either that or as the lyrics that you sing about. This is something that showed that a band such as Mayhem, pulling a little bit of a U-turn and trying a brand new trick, actually caused them to have a legacy that's even lengthier, considering now this new breed of Mayhem, you don't know what's going to happen next. And that's a nice thing to think about, considering these bands are seen as one of the patriarchs of true black metal. Number 4 is Vinder with Lichtfurt. And this is another band that honestly would have been massive if it would not have been for tragedy. Of course, we all know the story of Valfor, who was tragically killed while he was walking in a snowstorm. And this was the masterpiece that Vinder was able to deliver prior to his demise. And it's a tremendous album with tracks such as Martyrium just showing the power that this band was able to behold. Now, we do still have this band sort of active, only obviously without Valfor, and that's in the form of the band Vreed. But nothing has ever been able to really come anywhere close to some of Vinder's classics, with Lichtfurt really being the absolute pinnacle. Number 3 is Darkthrone with the Underground Resistance. Yeah, this album. Not the ones from the past, not Transylvanian Hunger. This is my way of saying that to you, considering the Underground Resistance is an amazing album. Now, yeah, it's obviously just a classic throwback to albums from the 1980s. There's speed punk everywhere, but there's still a little bit of black metal that's in there. And this is a band that, again, I like groups that take risks. I like music that takes risks. Sometimes it works and I get pissed. Other times it's amazing and I gush. This is a gush moment, considering this album personified the moment. It was something that nobody expected whenever they picked up this record. They had an expectation, and then the actual album started, and they're like, the fuck is this? This is awesome. This is incredible. Long tracks, high vocals. It's not just screeching or bellowing or growling. This was a very important milestone for the band, and it's one that I hope that they revisit sometime in the future. Number 2 is Dissection with Storm of the Light's Bane. Now, there could be a debate about whether or not it should be this album, whether or not it should be The Somber Loin, or really, for me, it was a debate about this album or Rin Chaos, which I think is incredibly underrated and a terrific disc. It's one that needs a lot more love. However, Storm of the Light's Bane is seen as one of the paramount examples of what black metal was all about. And that this was one that had a nice diversity, a nice little mixture of the riffing, whenever you consider a song such as Where Dead Angels Lie, whenever it comes to the overall atmosphere, whenever it comes to the evil factor, whenever it comes to how the overall musicality works and how the album flows. It's a brilliant example of that flows like a river mentality, although in this case it would be if the river was on fire with spike-filled, had piranhas in it, sharks, as well as a couple of goldfish that were strapped with nuclear devices. Yeah, good luck walking over that bridge. Have fun, fucker. Number 1, Emperor with Prometheus, the Discipline of Fire and Demise. I like different. I don't know how this isn't going to get through after this pick for number 1. I love this album. I love the fact that for a group that was able to provide us with some wonderful, wonderful black metal throughout the course of their entire career. Really, you could have handpicked any number of albums from Emperor and it would have had a nice place at the top. This is easily one of the best bands that black metal has ever delivered. Prometheus, which is their oddest album, their strangest album, their album that blends a little bit more of that avant-garde style that we would see a lot more with albums such as Esoteric Warfare by Mayhem or Scar-Sighted by Leviathan, who basically took it full retard. This is a disc that showed that there was a lot more that black metal could be. Now, other groups were doing that. Other groups were showcasing that. But Emperor took that bold risk one last time with their final album, and they produced a masterpiece. They produced an absolute classic, something that I could pick up and spin any day of the year, at any time of the day. It doesn't matter if it's a day like today, where it's 80 degrees, perfectly sunny outside, and it looks like you should walk outside and want to listen to some sort of like summertime Will Smith song. I could be blasting Prometheus, the Discipline of Fire and Demise by Emperor. That's just how good of an album it is. It's an album that's perfect for any occasion. So, what is your list of top 10 favorite black metal albums? Have you finished them in the comments yet? If you haven't, well, you should really get on that. That way everybody knows just how wrong I am. That's the whole key of this video. I'm coverkillernation. I'll talk to you guys next time. Oh, but before I go, and I know this is terribly un-black metal of me, but you can get any of these albums, or at least some of them, over on the Amazon page. It's in the description box. And you might say, well, that's horribly not black metal whatsoever. That's not cult at all. But remember, one of your heroes had himself a label. And the way in which he had to sell the stuff was by selling it, promoting it, and doing some of the same things that I just did. Am I really the one who isn't cult? Or are you the one who's not cult because you think you're so cult that you're actually anti-cult? That just sounded really retarded. Bye!